There's something here that is wanting to be revealed to me with regard to breath work, the connection between mindfulness and breath work. Mindfulness is the clarity that comes from focused attention, like leaves of a tree yearning to join the stars in stillness. Like leaves of a tree yearning to join the stars in stillness. And that began a whole envelope that was opened of thought around the connection between mindfulness and breath work. So I wanted to share that today because it's kind of hot off the press. And primarily what the main idea of what I saw was mindfulness is using our life force energy, our consciousness, to direct, focus our attention on what's happening right now in this moment. It's engaging our free will. So it has components of mind, has components of heart, will, and because the body is the temporal organism that is infused or inhabited by spirit, it has the component of time and space, being right here, right now. As I was sort of listening to these thoughts, I saw mindfulness as being primarily a mental event where we focus attention is actually now neurologically shown or proven, researched and proven, that it's the middle prefrontal cortex, which is the sort of the operant part of our brain, which commands and regulates our attention. And it regulates a lot of other things too. There's 9 different kind of regulatory functions of the middle prefrontal cortex, all the way from emotional regulation to body regulation to morality, believe it or not, is also under the function of the middle prefrontal cortex. Breath work, on the other hand, so mindfulness is a top-down. It's going from the brain, the prefrontal cortex, different parts of the midbrain, the limbic system, reptilian brain, down into our body. We're inviting awareness and engaging this awareness with all the different components of our subcortical processes, our body systems. Right? So they would call it in neurobiology a top-down process. Now, I don't know if this is, this is not the science here. I'm not a scientist and a researcher in that way. But there are what they call top-down processes and bottom-up processes. Things that the body, like the vagal nerve system, which is, I guess, 80%, we were just talking about this, 80% of the information exchange between the vagus, enteric, the gut nervous system, and the brain. 80% of it is going toward the brain, and 20% is coming back. So it's primarily a body-mind kind of information system. Breath work, with the movement of the diaphragm being primarily 2/3 in the gut, breath work is a bottom-up processing of energy and awareness. And the breath helps to exchange energy and information through the flow of life force within and around all form. It's what connects you to yourself, your source, and each other. Through the gift of compression, however, new dimensions of awareness wait to be revealed. The wind breath energy is simply a catalyst of compression. That's what they call it, catalyst of compression, that delivers awareness into new realms of knowing itself. This is also something we talked about yesterday. What is compression? Compression is this idea that comes from Glenda Green, the Yeshua information, but it's a primary physics kind of idea of, it's a basic form of efficiency within the processes of the universe. There's this fundamental principle in universal systems to want to seek efficiency. So, compression is, in its greatest expression, is that point just before the Big Bang. It's when what we were talking about in the creation story yesterday, where all the particles of the unknowing knowingness there's one imperfection, it comes together in this huge compression that's way beyond even black holes, and then the Big Bang, which they peg at, what, how many billion years ago? 12. Compression is the multiplication of energy within the probabilities of its expression. So energy flowing can go in any number of ways. And when we don't put a time-space dimension on it, it can go into all different directions. When we have a breath session and we're breathing and we have a core wound comes up like, you know, I'm not enough. No matter what I do, I'm not enough. The contributors of that energy and information are, as we suggest as breath workers, are not just this body, this life, this ancestry, this DNA, but coming from other lifetimes and other sources, the culture, everything, because we are connected. That's much we know. So, for example, so compression practically in its simplest form is like carrying two objects from one location to another instead of one object, right? And you get to my age and you suffer from dyskinesia and you can't even remember the one object that you went to get. Okay? But if you do remember it, you might go, oh, well, I'm going to bring something over here and then I'm going to bring something back. Right. That's compression. Compression is having a shelf of books for sale in a professional office. Okay? It's doing two things at once. Having advertising pay for media or informational programming. This is the one I love the best. Compression is a Swiss Army knife. It is the multiplication of purpose and use in the performance of a particular form and or transfer of energy. Okay? Swiss Army knife. That's a perfect example of compression. Okay. How does this even relate to what we're talking about here? Compression for the soul is the use of its free will and choice to command the potential for growth through attention, action, and responsibility. I'll say that again. Compression for the soul is the use of its free will and choice to command the potential for growth through attention, action, and responsibility. One of the statements you have used to arouse this longing for growth is, many are called, few are choosing. I've been saying that for years. This takes it from the realm of deserving, few are chosen, okay, are you the chosen few, right? Yeah. To the realm of responsibility. Many are called, but few are choosing. Everyone in this room, as we talked about before, choosing to become aware and empowered, present and enlightened. Breath. Sometimes we're very far from this moment of time and space. Our bodies are here, but our consciousness is who knows where, somewhere else. And that we can use what the breath is the way that we move into this present moment by getting conscious, engaging the body with conscious breathing. We get present. We come from wherever we are, wherever not, to where we are here. Right? This is the purpose of it. This choosing implies intention and conscious direction of free will. Conscious choice, this is why I read the poem this morning from Robert Alter called Choice, implies a compression of awareness that grows in its ability to be self-knowing, able to respond to itself and the world in which it lives. Choosing, therefore, implies responsibility and the emergence of new forms as expansions and expressions of energy. So I choose to breathe. I choose to put my awareness in this moment. See these things starting to emerge. Mindfulness, I choose to be aware. I choose to focus my ability to have conscious attention in this moment. Breath, I choose to move my body, my respiratory system, in this moment, in this way. Now here's where it gets kind of interesting. Flow is dependent upon rhythm, and rhythm relies on the harmonics of movement found in vibration. So our hearts beat at a rhythm, our brain waves, go back and forth in various components of the brain in rhythm. Everything is vibration. We know this. Everything in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. Something like God was with the Word, or something like that. Everything in reality, in existence, is vibration. The pause at the bottom of the breath is nature's way of assuring a continuance of life through a counterbalancing of positive and negative energies. the pause at the bottom of mammalian breath, okay, is nature's way of assuring a continuance of life through a counterbalancing of positive and negative energies. Now, those are not like good, bad, but positive and negative. Inflow of oxygen, outflow of carbon dioxide. And it's small percentages of shift in that air, but it's what we do in counterbalance by the plant kingdom on the planet, in the earth. Okay. When that pause is acted upon with conscious attention and conscious intention, the vibratory rhythm of life changes. And depending upon increase or decrease, a positive or negative compression occurs. Breath work engages this fundamental process in a profound way. It's the changing of the natural rhythm of the breath according to what life is asking of our bodies. How much we're moving, how much we're sitting, what we're thinking about, where our imagination is going. And when we're fully present, probably a very gentle, or sleeping in the dream state, a very gentle rhythm. When we put our intention, free active will, into that rhythm to increase it, decrease it, any way change it, and most importantly, close the gap at the bottom, imposition of will, we create a compression of energy. That what they were saying is that is bottom up. And if the rhythm of our breath, this is the other thing, is really associated with time, then we compress time. And when we direct our attention into mindfulness, which is our perception of the world inside and around us, we compress space. Starting to get this? Mm-hmm. Mindfulness, top down, space compression. Breath work, bottom up, time compression. Awareness also implies the presence and motion of energy. So when consciousness through focal attention is directed towards reality experience, as in mindfulness practice, there is a primary compression. They call this the primary compression of energy. This becomes a top-down felt sense of consciousness as it focuses attention toward a shift in the experience of body-mind perceptual space. Okay, so basically just what I was saying. Mindfulness invites, encourages, endorses, embraces a shift in perceptual awareness, a shift in perceptual experience. This is just the application of our awareness through attention creates a compression. Okay, this is the top down. Consciousness, by changing the biologically attuned rhythm of breath in the body, creates a secondary compression. A secondary compression of energy that affects the bottom-up processes, awareness, and experience of time. So when you combine a primary compression of awareness through focal attention, that's the mindfulness piece, with the secondary compression of eliminating the pause at the bottom of the breath, which is connected breathing or certain types of pranayama, you create a dual compression of energy, matching top-down and bottom-up processes which catalyze a shift in the perspective of time-space and the perception of time-space. So, I've been hearing this, we've been talking about this, Tricia, we've talked about this for years, and about like how breath work, and I don't even remember when that idea showed up first, of how breath work compresses time and space. Because what we know is, and this is in the real practical therapeutic sense, is that when we connect the breath, it gives us access to subcortical, body-mind memories, energies, and processes that we can't access through our prefrontal cortex in a normal way. That every trauma worker that I know right now on the planet is saying you can't talk your way through PTSD. You can't talk your way through the deep trauma. You need to engage subcortical process, which is limbic system, reptilian brain, brain, the spinal cord and all the nervous systems that cluster in the heart, especially in the gut. That we need to engage our bodies. When you're working as breath workers, what do you think you're doing? You're working with PTSD. You're working with body, mind held or blockages of tension. That's really the way we see it, is the tension in the body, the tension in the breath, that are the energetic representations of experiences that haven't been integrated. Now, through Dan Siegel's work, and interpersonal neurobiology, and just neurobiology, period, that we need conscious awareness to engage the part of the brain that integrates trauma. It's called the hippocampus. And when we have conscious awareness of whatever it is, oh, wow, I suddenly remember when I was 5 that I fell off my bike and had to go to the hospital because I hit my head, and we haven't remembered that for 50 years. That very engaging neurological activity is immediately starting to rewire this implicit only memory, which shows up occasionally as whenever I get on my bike near a street, I start to go like this, or I start to shake, or whatever. Implicit, non-recognized, unintegrated memory, and it begins through the hippocampus to convert it to integrated explicit memory. Explicit memory has, it's a fact that happened in the past, and it's autobiographical. Factual, autobiographical. That was a bike, that was a car, that happened then, shit happens, blah, blah, blah. I was in that experience then. And you can either see it as being on the bike having the accident, or from above. It's this very weird thing that the brain does, as if you're watching a movie of yourself having the accident. But until that bubbles up from wherever that frozen energy is in the body, bubbles up to consciousness, to conscious awareness, it's going to remain implicit only. It's not going to have a chance for integration. Okay? So from all these years of saying, time, space compresses, well, I'm starting to understand, and the other piece that I've always felt is that mindfulness has the same physiological and philosophical foundations as breathwork. And I didn't know why. I just knew that it was true. That how I position myself in response to doing a connected breathing session, a therapeutic breathwork session, is the same positioning as if I were sitting on a cushion, just witnessing, watching, becoming mindful, non-judgmental, non-reactive, accepting, etc. Able to name my experience, able to witness what's happening now as it's happening now. Right? The way we defined mindfulness yesterday. Your experience of time and space is solely dependent upon the nature of consciousness and its fundamental assumptions about reality, for which most of the part are somatically based. In other words, as we believe, we perceive. As we perceive, we believe. Okay, and it's, you believe what you perceive what you believe. Beliefs are nothing more than biologically based and imbued thought forms made durable through repetition and experience. Okay? These are the core trauma wounds that we're working with as breathwork practitioners. Are just core beliefs, stories that we made up and then reinforced by thinking them over and over and over again, and then calling into us more experience that supported the very hypothesis we made when we were 5. You see, there's never enough love for me. And I can't trust caregivers because they'll abandon me in the end, or whatever conclusions we made. Change the biological endorsements, and you change your perspective of consciousness through the direction of these compressions, you see. Thus, entering into the choice to employ compressions of awareness will change the nature of your beliefs. Mindfulness as that primary compression, opening the doorway of a different perception of space, and where we hold our energies literally in the space of our bodies. And breath work by shifting the perspective of time, because that's frozen in a non-time space. Remember, explicit is that happened to me then. We put it in the past when we integrate the memory. But it's held right now as if that's what Bessel van der Kolk and Peter Levine talk about, is that the traumatic unintegrated memories live within us as if it's happening now. There's a tiger right outside that door. And if I get over like this, like when I was 5 and stuck my hand down below the space in my bed, did anybody do this? The guy was going to grab you, the boogeyman.
Alligator.
The alligator, the boogeyman was going to grab you. So I used to go like this, just to see how long I could keep my hand in that dark space. Oh my God, that was scary. So, what does this mean? As we initiate the dual compressions of awareness and body breathing, we unlock the doorways to a different experience of our reality as we know it. A problem or situation cannot be solved or refreshed at the level it was created or is operant. By merging these two compressive doorways of mindfulness and breathwork, consciousness is given a unique opportunity not only to discover the new realms of reality, but also to rise above, reevaluate, redirect outdated, non-integrated stories and narratives about life that have become biologically and cognitively bound. This is our freedom. This is the doorway to our freedom. New dimensions and discoveries of consciousness are the promise of every life, within every life. As many have said, the only way through is through the body, the breath, your emotions, awareness. In a way, both the body and the breath are extensions of awareness with form and movement. Right? Dynamic territories of infinite possibility waiting to be explored and rediscovered. This is why do you think we have so many pranayams? Why do we think we have so many traditions, ancient traditions, that employed the use of controlling or moving or, commanding the breath to inhabit different states of awareness and consciousness? The secret, however, and this is the final point I want to make, the secret to these explorations of form and spirit, these undiscovered countries, however, is not through the use of existing beliefs, stories, and narratives, but through the reinvention of new placements of conscious attention. Responsive and, influenced by the current cultural zeitgeist, awareness, collective mind, and able to reside within new realms of understanding. And this thought was coming through, well, let me just finish this. The only way to catalyze these new placements or positions of consciousness is through the innocence of a child's eye, is through new and present dimensions of understanding. Love propels awareness into new dimensions of form and spirit within which consciousness co-inhabits. Okay? Say that again. Love propels awareness into new dimensions of form and spirit within which consciousness then co-inhabits. To simply employ pre-existing philosophical paradigms or spiritual cosmologies as the lens through which we as the explorers perceive is no different than the damage done by the Spanish conquistadores who destroyed an entire culture in search of gold in the Fountain of Youth. See, we can extract these incredible principles and awarenesses from Tibetan Buddhism, from Indian Buddhism, from Hinduism, from all the different traditions, from indigenous wisdom practices, breath practices. We can incorporate and take all of these, but we are not those people who lived then. This is like saying that actually the way to our freedom is to take an explicit memory as a race and to go back then and there and try to live it out as an implicit only memory, as if it were now. That's backward thinking, back-ass thinking. It's just not going to work. And my biggest beef about most of the breathwork traditions that are currently in our culture is that they are based on foundational principles of cosmologies, religious and spiritual cosmologies that don't quite apply to you and me, living as white bread, suburbanite or rural Americans, Westerners. So the renegade in me has always pushed against any tradition that said, you have to buy these tenets lock, stock, and barrel in order to be free, to find enlightenment. And this is where I beg to differ with that. No, we are the explorers with our cultural milieu and belief systems. We are the ones that need to jump in with the beginner's mind, the innocence of a child's eye, and discover the things that are workable for us and create the sacred circles, the sacred hoops of our communities, not try to mimic something that's 3,000 years old. Nature in its infinite evolutionary wisdom not only provides for life's nurturance, but also seeks to evolve within life by offering these compressions of awareness through the gift of consciousness. However, if you look closely, you would see these compressions are ultimately additive, not subtractive. In other words, nature always seeks to sustain itself through compensatory expansions and contractions of energy. To solely utilize a system of thought based upon a community of life that existed back then and back there, or over there, ultimately is maladaptive. However, extending certain principles of truth that have been workable, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, okay, workable in reality in the past through a fresh lens of adaptability, synergy, communion, and awareness can be functional, generative, and in the end, expansive. And this is what I feel we are here at the frontier of this consciousness work to engage with, to perform. Compressions of awareness through attention, the body, and the breath shall ultimately lead human consciousness out of the abyss of disconnection that currently plagues most of our earthly inhabitants. As your brain buddy over there would say, you are hardwired for interpersonal connection and energy flow. This is Dr. Dan Siegel. The pressure of the pain of feeling and knowing at the deepest energetic level, and not being able to practice the practice of interconnected, that we are hardwired for interconnection and interpersonal connection. You know, to feel that separation and yet also simultaneously know, it's like a paradox, that we have it within us to do this is the source, they're saying, of most of the suffering today. It's like we have the capacity, but our current cultural beliefs and you know, and separation and traumas are preventing us from exercising that capacity. And thus, here we are. There will come a day when a person's success is measured not by his or her accomplishments or accolades or external achievements, okay? Or the degree of disconnection and sacrifice it took to get them there. That's what's heroic right now. Okay? Yeah, no pain, no gain. Instead, a person's success will be measured by the degree of their deeply felt interconnectivity and relational compassion, which gets expressed moment to moment through heartfelt, compassionate actions and enthusiastic presence. That day shall come when a new map has been drawn upon the discoveries of consciousness, founded upon and attuned to the harmonious integration of all the systems of body, mind, and spirit. Aho.
Oh.